Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, joined, as I am every Saturday morning, with most valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. It is, as I mentioned, Saturday morning, and we know what that means. It is the weekly stream or skip segment. As you know, I introduce a segment, and then I turn it over to you, and you remind our listeners, old and new alike, what is the purpose and the rules of stream or skip. So without further ado, go for it, buddy.
All right. So Ethan and I have prepared lists of TV shows for each other to watch. Every week, we randomly assign each other one of those shows. We watch 30 minutes if it's a feature-length program, 2 episodes if it's a series, and on that basis, we determine if that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
And then last week, we had Rooster. You watched it, right?
I did. So, yeah, before we get into the regular stream or skip, I watched Rooster on your strong recommendation. And as usual, your strong recommendation was absolutely spot on because we both share a mind.
It was. We share a sense of humor. I think.
Absolutely. And it was hilarious. I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was funny. I thought it was comedic without it being slapstick sitcom comedy. So it's a little bit dry. It's a little bit serious. It's got all the people we know and love from all the different shows we know and love. I was a big fan.
Good. So definitely now we've got a double must-subscribe recommendation for Rooster on HBO. If you haven't checked that out, Steve Carell. And you recognized all the other guys from other shows as well, right? The Dean is played by the gent from Scrubs.
Scrubs, John McGinley. So this is a Bill Lawrence show, so he does Shrinking. He does
Ted Lasso.
He did Ted Lasso. He did Scrubs. He did Cougar Town. Phil Dunster is in there. He plays the cheating
Phil
husband.
Dunster.
He was in Ted Lasso. John T. McGinley was Dr. Cox in Scrubs. So I'm sure over time we'll see more people that you recognize from other Ted Lawrence shows or Bill Lawrence shows.
All right, so that is last week's must-subscribe recommendation, and I'm happy that you back it up. It would have been an awkward moment had you disagreed with me, but no pressure. Let's turn our attention to this week. I'll let you go first, my friend. What did I assign to you to watch?
So you assigned me Death by Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Great title, but not at all what you would expect from that title.
Nope.
It is a biopic and it's a historical drama at the same time. Yeah. So biopics, I'm generally all in favor of. Historical dramas, not my bag, right? I mean, other than maybe Bridgerton, it's just not that kind of old American, old British time, not my thing.
I'm exactly the same. Historical dramas are not my thing, but this one I thought was okay.
Spoiler alert, of all the historical dramas that I could have been assigned, I'm glad I was assigned this. This was pretty good. It's got a fantastic cast. I mean, the cast is bonkers good.
It is bonkers
Matthew
good.
McFadden, who we'll all recognize from Succession.
Yep.
Nick Offerman, Michael Shannon, Bradley Whitford. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is like the who's who of drama.
Yeah.
Proper drama actors. Really high-end stuff. And effectively, it's a biopic about the assassination of James Garfield. He was the 20th U.S. president. No spoiler alert because this is history. I mean, you should know this by now.
The strange thing is that unlike a lot of very well-known historical figures and specifically U.S. presidents, James Garfield is not one that rolls off your tongue. Not one that's either a popular president or a well-known story or anything, right? It's a little bit niche, in fact.
So I was about to say it's exactly that because it's not a historical figure that I would immediately think of. And in fact, I mean, I have no real knowledge of Garfield other than the fact that I chose him second in my 2024 summer blockbuster predictees, which was a disaster.
The cat.
Yeah. So
I promise you I did not assign this as a way to rub salt in the wound. But now you are forever associated with all things Garfield. All things Garfield.
Yeah. I've lost my taste for lasagna because of that stupid cat. But the point is, the point stands, right? It's already a genre I wouldn't normally watch. Biopics I'm fine with, but generally speaking, biopics are also of more, let's see, famous or infamous or, well-known people. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say James Garfield isn't well-known, of course, but of the 40-odd presidents that the United States has had,
he's not Lincoln.
Top 10.
He's not Washington. He's not JFK. You're right.
He's just not that well-known, right? And that's amongst Americans. I think I'm confident when I can say that amongst Americans, let alone international audience members.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, anyway, so it's a biopic about James Garfield, who is a congressman. In fact, I think he's a senator for Idaho or Ohio, something like that. And it sets off by him basically being a reluctant Republican nominee for the United States presidency after giving a rousing speech at the National Republican Convention. That speech was fantastic.
It was.
That was one of the more inspired speeches. The first half of the story is basically about him getting nominated and, of course, obviously being elected, and the political shenanigans that it requires for him to accept the nomination, to, win the presidency. It's a very interesting look of this show.
Offerman's character is really enjoyable, by the way.
Very good. Very good. So now let's get to the other half of this show. So this is really a show in two halves, because the other half of the show focuses on Matthew McFadden's character, a man named Charles Guiteau.
Right.
Now, Charles Guiteau, we see him first. His first scene is him talking to the parole board about getting out of jail, because he's basically a fraudster, a shyster, a shuckster, a bad guy, whatever you want to call him.
Yep.
He's one of those guys that's basically
the snake oil salesman.
The snake oil salesman. That's right. Like, he skates by on his relatively good looks and his charm, but, he's not a good guy. He steals money from his family just so that he can kind of live a high life. He's one of those people who thinks that he's just been dealt a bad hand in life and he deserves more without having to work for it.
In some ways, I found him to be a little bit sympathetic. Yeah. And right when I was trying to find a little bit of sympathy for him, he'd go and he'd do something like objectively wrong.
Yeah.
But there were some instances where it's true that kind of like it seemed like life was against him in some instances, but then you'd be like, you know what? I could kind of see it from his perspective.
He's on the mend. He's on the rebound. He's making the amends that he should be making.
Yeah.
But then in the next scene, he robs his sister and his brother-in-law.
Exactly.
Anyway, so the point is that's the second half of the story, and obviously those two stories are going to collide because, as any historian will tell you, Charles Guiteau is the guy who assassinated James Garfield.
Yeah.
It's basically a story about these two parallel lives and how they intersect.
Yeah.
I watched 2 episodes.
It's only 4.
So I watched half of the series. That sounds better. Despite how interested I was in political machinations for James Garfield, I can't give this more than a mooch because A, not my genre.
Yeah.
And B, I'm not a huge fan of the Charles Guiteau storyline so far. Like, anytime I see the Charles Guiteau storyline, I'm just like, oh my God, I want to skip this. I want to get back to James Garfield because I think his story far more interesting.
I think I echo exactly how you've rated this. It's a mooch, but I really liked it. I watched all 4 episodes. I learned a lot. I mean, I didn't have, to be honest, any knowledge about Garfield whatsoever or the background. And I assume a lot of this is mostly historically accurate.
Yeah.
I liked it, even though I'm like you, historical drama is not my theme. But there's not a lot of like real intrigue here. There's not a lot to kind of like carry the storyline. I mean, Garfield is a compelling character in the sense that, he's got a very clear moral compass. He's got a very clear, political conscience. There's something that he really wants to achieve, and he's very strong-willed in working towards that. And Guteau, has a series of shenanigans, and he's just kind of hopping into problem to problem to problem. But apart from that and superb acting, there's just not a lot of plot to like really kind of keep you like intrigued. So I think definitely 4 episodes is right. I don't think they could have stretched this to 6, and 8 would be like out of the question. So I'm kind of with you that I thought it was definitely a mooch. It kept my interest for 4, but definitely at the end I was like, oh, that was pretty good. But I didn't feel the need like, oh, I wish it would have went on for 2 more episodes. I could definitely binge 2 more right now.
Right.
All right. So that's a mooch on Netflix. Now, Pete, you assigned me something called Imperfect Women. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's a psychological thriller, and it's based on a novel. The cast is pretty solid. It's Elizabeth Moss, Kerry Washington, Kate Mara. Those are the, let's call it the best friends. Joel Kinnaman, who we know from For All Mankind, plays kind of the bad guy husband. And then I'd say that there's a smaller role for Corey Stoll. This is a mooch for a few reasons. The plot revolves around the murder of Kate Mara's character. And Elizabeth Moss and Kerry Washington, who were her best friends, are obviously coming to grips with the murder of their friend. There's a lot of backstory, and they both have their own guilt for like different reasons. Joel Kinnaman is the husband, and it's a did he or didn't he kill her kind of thing. And it's just kind of panning from character to character, backstory to backstory. It's a mooch because it's entertaining in its own way. Production value, very, very high. It's on Apple TV. In terms of like a plot or a story, it's nothing that we haven't seen before. It's kind of, again, a typical psychological murder thriller. Who did it? Did he do it? Did he not do it? Maybe one of her friends did it, or maybe they were involved, or she was having an affair. And you know how these things kind of spiral out of control. As there's more backstory and more things are revealed, then you start to see, oh, she had this secret life that no one knew about. She was the perfect Stepford wife, but we didn't know about her backstory and this thing, and she was involved in this, and then her friends are finding out. And again, nothing we haven't really seen before. Primary thing that's keeping me from giving this a must subscribe and keeping it as a mooch is that there's just not a lot of novelty in the overall plot and in the overall storyline. It could be called a number of different things with a number of different characters as cast, and we'd still think that it's a psychological murder thriller television miniseries, 1 season. We've seen it on Netflix, we've seen it on Amazon, we've seen it on HBO, we've seen it in a bunch of other places. Not that that's a bad thing. These things are remade because they're popular, because, people tune in, because it's fun to kind of like track down, who may or may not have, murdered their wife or their friend or their lover. But I just say it because there's not a whole lot here apart from the fact that it's a powerhouse, cast. It's interesting, though, how the characters of, like, if you're just looking at the actors, Elizabeth Moss has kind of a different role here where she's like the mom and like the friend. Like, she's more of a homemaker and the active mom with like young kids. Kerry Washington is kind of like the single high profile businesswoman. That's kind of her role. But for Elizabeth Moss, it's kind of a new role, I felt like. She's usually a very strong character, and here she's a little bit weaker. Kate Mara, is kind of the perfect wife, and, she's got the backstory. Joel Kinnaman, I don't know what Joel Kinnaman's ever done, but he was like the bad guy husband. But I felt like he played that character like a little bit too well,
Okay.
Like he plays that passive aggressive husband a little bit too well, like in a creepy way. Like when an actor is actually too good in a role, like in a creepy role, it starts to be like,
I know what you
like
mean.
He's a very good abusive husband. And it's like, well, bravo, what a great actor that he can play that role. And it's kind of like, but should you be able to play that role so well? Like,
Right.
like whenever you have something like a cannibal, a rapist, an abuse, like like an assassin, it's kind of like desensitized, like, oh, they're a good assassin. It's like, it doesn't hit home as much. But like someone who's kind of like abusive with their spouse, it's a little bit like, should they be so good at that role? Like, it seems like they're too good at it,
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's ever done to get cast in that role, but I feel like that's the second time I've seen him in that role, and he just plays it like so well that it's like, oh, I feel like awkward for him,
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to end again. I mean, well, I know that Kate Mara's character dies. I don't know if Kinnaman actually killed her or not. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say like steamy sex, but I mean, there's definitely sex and affairs, and you know how it goes with Apple TV Plus. A lot of like bum shots and stuff like that, but nothing like terribly salacious. So for me, it's a mooch. If someone said it's a must subscribe, I'd be a little bit curious why they think it's so great. Like, are they really into Kerry Washington? Do they really like psychological thrillers? Like, what's the thing behind it? By the same token, if someone said like, oh man, this is a skip, I think it's definitely not skip worthy. I think it's better than that. Very solid. And I think that gets us back to Apple TV Plus, which unlike Netflix, and I know you just had Death by Lightning on Netflix, I find the Netflix offerings right now are very, very weak. Like I'm scrolling through Netflix. I'm not finding anything to watch. On Apple TV Plus, I'm kind of toggling between like 4 different things. The new season of For All Mankind is out.
Yeah.
There's Shrinking. Friends and Neighbors, new season just came out. Have you watched it?
I am up to date on Friends and Neighbors.
Love Friends and Neighbors, right?
Loved it.
The new season.
I'm not a huge fan of the quote-unquote twist of this season so far, but we'll see.
Yep. So I feel like Apple TV Plus, I mean, we've said it so many times, like definitely not the same quantity as Netflix, but the quality is just like so much higher.
Yeah.
Like every show on Apple TV Plus, I could probably get into one way or another. Netflix, I'm just like, okay, there's 100 shows here, but like none of them is really grabbing my attention.
Yeah.
Now, apart from Friends and Neighbors Season 2 on Apple TV Plus, For All Mankind Season 5 on Apple TV Plus. Have you started watching that yet?
Okay. I mean, here's the crazy part. I couldn't finish the first episode. I just could not get through it. I don't know if it's been so long. I don't know if they've got so many different plot lines now and so many different angles of opportunity now, but I've kind of lost interest.
I think For All Mankind is, in a way, a victim of its own success.
Yeah.
In the first 3.5 years, where unfortunately, season 1 was very slow in terms of the timeline. And then season 2 and season 3 went so fast. The amount of developments from like just barely landing on Mars to where they are now, that they've kind of boxed themselves in on the end of season 4 and season 5. And now I think that, to be honest, the writers just are like, well, there's not a whole lot more we can do without turning into like a total sci-fi show.
I don't know what the end game is, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
you had a very clear idea of what the end game was in every season from the get-go.
Yeah.
What is the ultimate goal for any of the participants in season 5? I don't know at the moment.
Yeah. They've also had to straddle this weird thing, which is the first 2 or 3 seasons. Remember Gordo? Like we knew, there were so many characters that we really loved. And Kinnaman's been kind of the one person who's been consistent throughout. But in order to meet the timeline, like, they've really got to age him up.
Yeah,
like,
and he's not looking like, I don't know, like, no disrespect to the costume designer and the makeup artist, but, like, I don't know if they've done such a great job with Kinnaman. Like, he doesn't look authentically like he's in his 60s or 70s or whatever he's supposed to be.
I think it's a really awkward balance what they're trying to do. And I don't know what the mood is on the set, but I kind of feel like it's like, let's just get this over with. Like, let's just get through 100%. The season. You know, because they should not have Kinnaman. Either they should make this 10 years earlier and you can age him a little bit. But I mean, they've aged him like 40 years or so. And it's awkward. And they've lost all the other characters. If you think back to season 1, like, he was the pilot who's driving like a Mustang or like a Corvette or something, you know, like, now he's like living in space. He's an admiral. Like, he's so old. It's just, I feel like the show should have either dropped him a while ago and gone in a totally different direction, which is fine, or it advanced too rapidly.
I think they got rid of characters that we like, but didn't replace them with any that we did.
Yeah. Because I remember, like, season 2, which is probably the height, you and I loved this show.
Oh, man.
Like, there were so many plot lines. There was so much to discuss. We loved all the characters. And then, you're right, slowly, every character died or aged out somehow. And they didn't really replace the characters.
And the characters they did replace them with were so unlikable. There's no one I'm emotionally in favor of at the moment.
No.
And that, I think, is the problem. Will I get there by the end of season 5? Sure, I hope so. But, you know, there's no one that I'm like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to see what she does.
I have to say, it's really one of the talents of great shows. Like, when you look at Rooster, which is no way the same as For All Mankind, but, like, when you're able to develop many, many characters, right? And all those characters, you kind of feel like you know their quirks and you know their personalities. The way that they've done that on Rooster, which is only like a 30-minute comedy, is really fantastic. Where you can take like 7 different characters and be like, oh, this person's known for this, or this person's known for that, or this person's a show stealer or a scene stealer because of this. That's great. And then you've got shows like For All Mankind where it's like, well, who are the main characters? All right, well, kind of Kinnaman is a grumpy old man, and Alita, who's administrative, and this person's gone, and this person's gone, this person's gone. Well, this person, Danny, is kind of the captain, and you just don't have the character growth that you feel like you can identify with them or know who they are, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to have more than 2 to 3 main characters. You need to have 5 or 6 people, and then you always need to be adding and subtracting and like expanding that universe a little bit. All right, so that's For All Mankind. And then we've got The Boys season 5, 3 episodes just dropped.
I am up to date on that as well.
Give me generally, without spoilers though, what is your impression of season 5?
I will say I'm glad this is the last season.
All right. Fair enough.
I'm just a little bit tired of the same dynamic, right? Mm. Butcher's the bad guy, but the good guy, but the bad guy, but the good guy. Starlight is this, but that, but this, but that. You know what I mean? Like, we've kind of seen it for 5 seasons. Let's just get on with it. Either, you're a success or you're not. Your mission is a success or your mission isn't. But, like, I'm over it. I kind of want to see it. And then the other thing is, and this is going to veer dangerously close to politics, but the things that are supposed to be heavy satires of politics are getting less and less satirical and not in a funny way. So you're just like, okay, well, I used to laugh a lot at how ridiculous politics was and the superhero quote unquote business was in first season. And now I'm just like, I'm so jaded by the real world where I'm just like, okay, well, it's not that funny because we're not that far away from that now.
That's one of the very dangerous moves, is that it became a superhero satire that became a political satire.
Exactly.
And however you feel about that is your opinion, but that's naturally going to alienate 50% of your audience. Like no one's going to be turned off by a superhero satire, be like, hey, wait a second, I love superheroes or I hate superheroes, and not watch the show because of that. Whereas once you introduce politics, by definition, 50% of the people are going to see it different than you.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Absolutely. No matter what and I'm not saying that this show is right-leaning or left-leaning. That's not the point. The point is, by just introducing politics as strongly as they have, I'm just like, okay, well, I want to see about the evil version of Superman. I don't want to talk about, politics.
That's right. And on HBO, in addition to Rooster, Euphoria Season 3.
I am not in that at all, so...
What?
I have to get started on it. I haven't watched any of Euphoria.
Euphoria is definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. I mean, the stars are Sydney Sweeney, who's globally recognized because of her role in this, and Zendaya. And just like I was mentioning, Joel Kinnaman in Imperfect Women plays that role a little bit too well. Zendaya plays a junkie a little bit too well. Maybe it's because I'm not in that. I'm not an actor. But the subtleties of how she plays a junkie or kind of like a drug mule, she's so good at it. It's absolutely a fantastic acting performance. But it's because it's so good and the little ways that she does things are so fantastic that you're like, wow, she's really good at this. Like, do you think she's really a drug dealer? Do you think she was ever really a junkie? Or like, did she study junkies? Like, she's fantastic at it. Very compelling performance. And even though her character is pretty awful, you know how like a character is so bad that you start to have like a little bit of sympathy for them and you're kind of like, well, I kind of like that character, right?
Yeah.
Even though like everything she does is bad and wrong, like she's addicted to drugs, right? I mean, she's a junkie. She's an addict. She's a drug dealer. She's a drug smuggler. She lies, like all the things that people who are addicts do, right? They steal, they lie, they manipulate, they hurt everyone around them without any regard for anyone else's property or feelings or anything, right?
Yeah.
Everything is bad, right? There's nothing in her life that she's doing that's good. But she does it in such a genuine way that her character is so compelling that you kind of be like, aw, like she kind of does it in a funny way. Like even though the situation's not funny, she just does it with this like aplomb and genuineness that you start to kind of like appreciate her character and have sympathy for her character. And it's a really weird thing because you start to justify like, well, she's not so bad, or her character's kind of cool. And you start to like that character, even though they're always in trouble and problems. But her approach to it is very whimsical and like optimistic, and there's just some of those characters that always like have a smart mouth or the right comeback or get themselves out of situations, and her character is like that. So it's hard not to like her character, even though I feel like you're not supposed to like her character because they're always hurting themselves and hurting others.
Right.
Like I find myself like emotionally conflicted. What's Professor Moon's word for this? He's got something.
Cognitive dissonance.
Thank you so much. Cognitive dissonance, right? Where you're like of two minds for something. You like something even though you're not supposed to like it. You admire something even though it's repugnant. And I think that's Zendaya's character here.
Yeah.
She plays that character extremely well.
Right.
So Euphoria is my guilty pleasure. I shouldn't really like that show just because everyone is really awful. It's very salacious. It's very sexualized, and it doesn't make me a better person in any way to watch that show. But it's just done really, really well. If you wanted to get into it, I don't think you would really regret it.
Okay.
All right, Pete. That was Death by Lightning, Mooch on Netflix. Imperfect Women, Mooch on Apple TV Plus. What do we have upcoming for next week?
All right, next week you are on Amazon Prime. You are watching a show called The Assassin. And I am on Paramount Plus watching a show called Curfew.
All right. Looking forward to that. Pete, before we sign off today, can you remind everyone of our social media, YouTube, and other social media creds so they can like, ring the bell, thumbs up, whatever else, positive feedback, comments, which we love, feedback, which we love. Tell us about it.
All right. Leave a comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and do not forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when the next episode of the Films and Stuff podcast drops for you.
This has been our weekly stream or skip segment on the Films and Stuff podcast. We hope that you will join us next week, next episode, Films and Stuff podcast. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.